Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 40 of Cameron's Nostalgia Podcast. We made it all the way to 40 episodes of my show, and today I have with me Fred Cline. How are you?
Great. So I'm number 40 or 41. Wow.
You're just episode 40.
Okay. So you've had 39 guests before me. Wow. Who are some of the people that you've interviewed?
Puppeteers, animators, and filmmakers.
Well, great. I'm glad to be included.
And we just made it all the way to the Big 4-0.
That sounds great. We need to celebrate.
Alright. So, now for any of the guys who don't know, Fred is a animation designer, director, and developmenter for Lego Dreams, Little Ellen, Puppy Dog Pals, Sheriff Callie's Wild West, Miles from Tomorrowland, and many more.
Yep. All the way back to um, Oliver and Company was my first picture at uh, Walt Disney Animation, and I worked on Great Mouse Detective and Little Mermaid. Then I worked on Space Jam, all kinds of stuff.
Nice. Let's begin our first question.
Let's go.
So, how did you get interested in How did you get interested in animation?
Okay, I guess I started to be interested in around eighth grade. Kids all watch cartoons on television, and in eighth grade, I started liking to draw, and so enjoying watching cartoons and drawing, it kind of draws you to think about making animated cartoons. So that's when I started.
So, what was your first animation gig?
My first animation gig was out of school, was in the summer right after I graduated from Cal Arts. There was a company called DIC Animation. It was kind of an international company. They had a studio in Toronto and a studio in France. Um, and they had a show called Wolf Rock TV, which was Wolfman Jack, that had he was like a VJ or a video jockey. That was right when music videos were popular and MTV was popular, as far as a station that um, showed only music videos. And so it was a cartoon show that had animated segments, and then it was the storyline was a bunch of kids who ran the video station with Wolfman Jack, and when they cut to a music video, it would cut to like a real music video, like popular at the time was Madonna and Cyndi Lauper and I don't know, Huey Lewis and the News. So those were the kind of music videos that were shown. Um, and This was kind of a strange show. So Wolfman Jack was animated, and the kids were animated, the teenagers were animated. But then when they cut to a music video as part of the show, it would cut to a real music video.
Nice. So, what was it like working on Mask?
Mask. Oh, that was another DIC show. And all I did was work on character designs. And it was like toward the end of my time at DIC, so I really didn't um, spend a lot of time on that show. But since I worked on the main characters, I had credits on every episode. So I didn't work throughout the entire run of the series. I just worked on the initial character designs for that show.
And what about the Great Mouse Detective?
Great Mouse Detective started out with the title of Basil of Baker Street. So it was a little mouse in Victorian London at the time of Sherlock Holmes. So it was like a detective mouse that was very strongly based on Basil Rathbone's portrayal. Basil Rathbone was a real actor who did Sherlock Holmes movies back in the 40s, I think. And so they kind of patterned this mouse detective after the Basil Rathbone portrayal of Sherlock Holmes. And it was like this parallel universe in London where the mouse, um, like the mouse population was all like they they acted like humans and wore clothes and everything, but they lived inside little holes in the wall and things like that. So you'd see in the establishing shots regular Victorian London, and then you truck in smaller and closer to the buildings until you were in the little mouse hole, and then you'd see what the mice are doing with their own communities inside the walls and things like that.
You are a background artist for Amazing Stories.
Yes, there was one episode that was animated on Amazing Stories that was fully animated, and it was Tim Burton had kind of conceived it with I think who I think Brad Bird directed it, and I think Jerry Reese had worked on it a little bit at the very beginning of the idea, but I'm not sure. And so eventually, Steven Spielberg bought that idea for his Amazing Stories, and they made it animated. It's like a half an hour or 22-minute. Maybe it was longer than that. I don't know. But I think it was that format, and it was just an episode of the anthology series. And so it was pretty popular too. It was called Family Dog, and it was about the experiences of a kind of a, I don't know, almost a mistreated family pet, I think.
And what about Sport Goofy and Soccer Mania?
Okay, Sport Goofy was an idea by the marketing group, I think, at Walt Disney, where they wanted to kind of resurrect the Goofy character, only they made him into a character that they could kind of promote sports type activities and merchandise by making him really good at sports, but still goofy at everything else. And so that was the Sport Goofy character. It was kind of short-lived. It didn't last very long as a character, but that was Soccer Mania was it was a soccer game with Sport Goofy was the coach for a bunch of kind of misfit soccer players, which were a bunch of different kinds of animals, kind of patterned after the animals that you see in a film called Bedknobs and Broomsticks, where they have some sort of I think it's kind of a cricket match or a soccer match or something like that. Um, and they use those characters as part of the soccer team. And Huey, Dewey, and Louie, which is Donald Duck's nephews, they are part of the team as well. And they're all going after this trophy that's donated by Scrooge McDuck.
Nice. What does a layout artist do?
Layout artist is kind of like a junior art director. So they do drawings and they do like a package of drawings, and it's like a stack of drawings for each shot. So it's like you'll do a drawing that's going to become the background painting. So it's just a pencil drawing of what the background's going to look like. And then you'll also do several drawings on top of that. One will show what kind of hand-drawn effects will go into the scene, like fire, rain, smoke, um, uh, a beam of light, things like that. So that's another drawing, and then another drawing on top of that is the character layout, where you'll show the key positions of what the character will be doing over the background, and then another drawing that is the camera fielding, which is the like if there's a camera move, you'll see the widest frame of the camera and the smallest frame of the camera. Or if it's a pan from left to right, you'll see the far left position of the frame and the far right position. And then if it stops along the way to stay on a portion of the action when it's going left to right, you kind of have to make those calculations a bit. And it's just the basic calculations for a camera move, and then those are refined by the camera department after it leaves your station. And then that stack of drawings will go to all the different departments, like the background drawing will go to the background painters, and the character layout will go to the animators, and the camera fielding is for the camera department, and the effects drawing is the layout for that. It goes to the effects animator. So everybody, it's kind of like an art direction stack of drawings for the whole shot.
Nice. You have worked on Oliver and Company.
Yes, that one we did a lot of research. I think that was when Katzenberg and Eisner first came in. When Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg first came into the company, they didn't really know much about animation production. And so they wanted to do something that was a little familiar to them. And they were both from New York City, born and raised in New York City. So they wanted to do a story in New York City. So there was an idea someone had to do Oliver Twist, but with cats and dogs in New York City. So that's the whole setup for that movie.
And what about The Little Mermaid?
Yeah, I worked on Little Mermaid. I remember doing the opening shots where this fish gets thrown overboard by the fisherman up above and goes through and brings the camera down through this and gives the viewer an introduction to the world under the sea, which is going by lots of like rock formations and different sea life and things like that. So I did the layouts for that, and I did the layouts for I think all of Ursula's um, activities, more of her shots.
And Ariel was voiced by Jodie Benson.
That's right. She was a Broadway actress, and I don't know much about what she did on Broadway. There was one thing that was using old George Gershwin songs, and they kind of put it into some sort of a story. And she was in that, and I guess somebody who was familiar with her work thought she'd be perfect for that part. So she's the one that got the job, and she was perfect for the part.
And what about working on Oil Spot and Lipstick?
Oh, you brought that one up. I think most people have not seen Oil Spot and Lipstick. That was an experimental short film when the computers were first starting to be used by Disney feature animation. They wanted some kind of a little project to test that out. And so they didn't want to spend a lot of money um, for artist salaries to be dedicated to that. So they asked people, it's like, well, anybody who wants to kind of like see what computer animations like can volunteer to work on this project. So I volunteered to work on it. And it was like you do your regular day's work, and then in the evenings, you do a little bit of work on this short film for free. And I don't know if they'd allow it these days, but that's how that short film was made.
Yes, and she was the host of Baby Faith.
And you're talking about who?
Baby Faith.
Is that a project I worked on?
No,
Oh, Bebe's Kids? Is that one? Bebe's Kids?
no, it was Baby Faith.
Well, spell it because I'm hearing Baby Faith because it doesn't sound like it's something I've ever worked on.
Faith.
I don't remember ever working on something with that name, so I'm just curious. Does it say what studio did it?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, sometimes I don't know. Are you looking at on IMDb at my credits, or where are you looking at? Are you looking at my resume?
Oh, all right.
Because sometimes I think on IMDb I'm credited for working on things that I never worked on. Like I never worked on DuckTales on IMDb.com. My credits show that I worked on DuckTales. So I thought, well, that's strange. It's like, how did my name get there?
Okay. What was it like working on Rover Dangerfield?
That was fun because I was working with a lot of friends, a lot of people that I went to Cal Arts and was in school with. My friend Steve Moore started out as a director on that movie. And when I heard about him being appointed as director, and I called him up to congratulate him. I said, I was working at Disney at the time, and I said, "Hey, if you're looking for an art director, I would like to put my name in the hat and be considered for that position." And previous to that, I had asked to become a visual development artist at Disney rather than a layout artist, and they did not say yes to that. And so I was thinking, it's like, where do I go from here? And so my friend Steve was looking for an art director, and he liked my work. He knew what I could do from being in school with me. And so that's how I started out as an art director. That was my first job as an art director.
And you worked on the Itsy Bitsy Spider.
Yeah, it was the same company as Rover Dangerfield, Hyperion Animation. It was a nice little company to work with. They did kind of smaller projects. And Itsy Bitsy Spider was a short film with Jim Carrey as the voice of this robotic pest exterminator character. And Itsy Bitsy Spider was a mischievous little spider that was kind of avoiding. So it was kind of a cat and mouse type thing where the exterminator is trying to kill the spider, and the spider's doing all sorts of tricky things to stay away from the or exterminator or get rid of the exterminator. Kind of like Tom and Jerry, but with an exterminator and a spider.
And what about Bebe's Kids?
Baby's Kids was Hyperion as well, and that was the first all African American character um, feature film. And it was produced by Paramount through Hyperion. And it was the Reginald brothers, Reggie and Warren Hud Hudlin brothers, yeah. So they wrote and directed it. Well, they kind of wrote and produced it, and then uh, Bruce um, Bruce Smith directed it. And so, yeah, that was a fun project as well, working with a lot of people that I had gone to school with.
And what about working on Space Jam?
Space Jam was very hectic because they wanted to get it out pretty quickly, so they had a huge crew and a huge budget. Um, and they had this director. Well, the producer was Ivan Reitman, and he was a real taskmaster. And I guess he had a reputation for really getting things done. And so this project was a feature film based, kind of like inspired by the Nike commercials where they had Bugs Bunny um, playing basketball with Michael Jordan. And so that was popular. So they made a feature film. And that was just a really hectic project because they wanted to do it so quickly. And it was fun and worked with a lot of interesting people and people that there was a lot of people from all parts of the industry. So it was a good project to meet different people in the animation industry on.
And what about Quack Pack?
Now that's one of the things that I got a credit on that for some reason someone put my name on IMDb. So I know you're getting some of this information off the internet. Um, that is something I never worked on. That was a Disney TV show, and I never worked on it. What Disney TV show did I work on? Well, nothing till much later than those shows, but I did work on some. They had, as part of Disney TV animation, they had a division called Disney Toons or Disney Toon Studios, and they had developed some different ideas. So I did a lot of pitch artwork for some of those ideas at that time. So I don't know if my name got mixed up with some of those other shows by somebody that was working there by accident, but I did find my name attached to a couple of shows that I didn't work on. Did you say it was the name Quack Pack? That was the name of the show? Yeah, that was one of the shows that I did not work on. For some reason, my name is credited on there.
And you worked on Quest for Camelot.
Camelot, yes, that was based on a story. There was there's a society of um, authors that write stories that are kind of like fan fiction, but on a more professional level. And this was a story called, oh, I can't even remember. It was called The Princess Knight, was the original Knight, Princess Knight, um, in the King Arthur days. And yeah, that was the first feature film idea that a newly formed Warner Brother Animation Studio came up with. And so actually the original story was really good. By the time it made it to screen, for some reason, it morphed into something very, very different from the original written story. Um, so it didn't do well at the theaters, but it was a good working experience, especially like just the upstart, the newly started studio, Warner Brother Feature Animation. That was a good time to be at Warner Brother Feature Animation.
Okay. And what about Olive the Other Reindeer?
Ah, that was another. My friend Steve Moore again was a director on that. It was a um, uh, like a half-hour television special, Christmas special, and it was based on a book, and I can't recall the name of the author of the book, but he has a very unique illustration style, and so that I guess maybe what's her name, Drew Barrymore. She does the voice of the main dog character, and she might have been the one that brought the book to the studio that decided to produce it as an animated Christmas special.
I don't know the author's name. It was J. Otto Seibold.
Ah, yes, that's it. Yeah, very unique graphic style, and we use that exact same style. And basically, I didn't work on the whole thing. I just did a color script for this store for the film for the project, which is basically taking the key shots or the continuity of shots and doing a single panel for each, or if there's a color change within the shot, just describing the color changes. And you're just doing little thumbnail paintings for each shot that show what the colors for that shot will be, and if there's any color changes, like um, um, a room that the lights are turned off during the shot, you want to show the room uh, lit normally with all the lights on, and then as the room looks with all the lights turned off.
And you are an actor for Surviving Paradise.
Ah, that, yeah, that was just a little incidental character part that I did. It was the only film as a live action actor that I got credit on, I think. But I did a lot of when I was doing. Sometimes I have downtime between projects. I want to fill that time when I was looking for other projects, doing something. So I do extra work on a lot of things, and then there are a lot of smaller um, projects where you could actually get dialogue. So that was a live action feature film, and I got screen credit for some dialogue.
You have played the part of the businessman.
Yeah, it's at the airport. There's some kids that I guess they get lost at the airport when their mother gets kidnapped or something because they're coming from Iran, and there's some sort of crime people that want to kidnap her and hold her for ransom. So the kids are kind of abandoned at the airport. And I just kind of have a little run-in with the kids at the front of the airport. They filmed that at the Tom Bradley terminal at the LAX, Los Angeles International Airport.
You have worked on the sequel for The Little Mermaid, which is Return to the Sea.
Right. That was a story of Ariel has a daughter, and I can't even remember the story too well, but I guess she is the same thing. Ariel had become a human and raised a daughter, and then the daughter wanted to become a mermaid, so she makes a deal with the sea witch, I guess that's Ursula's sister at that time, so it's a skinny version of Ursula. Originally, they wanted to use the voice of Anne Bancroft, and they started out, but not too soon after they started recording, they replaced her with the original voice of Ursula, which was Pat Carroll. So Pat Carroll did the voice of both Ursula and her sister Morgana, I think. Morgana, I think that was her name.
And,
But actually, that one, I wasn't a layout artist. I was the art director or the production designer on that one.
and you worked on Osmosis Jones.
I worked on Osmosis Jones, doing visual development early on. So I think I designed like a little inside the body police car vehicle and a few other kind of uh, things that you see in the film. They used enough of my designs. I was on that film for a little bit, and then I went to another studio to do something. I think it was the Betty Boop feature. No, that was before. What happened after this? I can't remember where I went after Warner Brothers, but I took a job somewhere else. And so I had done some early development on Osmosis Jones. And so that's why my credit is on Osmosis Jones.
And you worked on a Nickelodeon film called Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius.
Now that was Nickelodeon and Paramount together. I guess Paramount owns Nickelodeon through Viacom. Viacom owns both. Okay. So yeah, so that was originally they wanted to do Jimmy Neutron as a t television series, and then a year after that make the feature film. And the John A. Davis, who conceived and sold the project to Nickelodeon, he said, "Well, it would be better to do the feature film first because then we'd have all that." Um, Design work already done and paid for that we use for the whole series. And so that's how they did it. They'd make the feature film first, and then it was followed by, I think, a 65 episode run of the television series. But I was just the production designer on the feature film. But you see a lot of my work in the series because they used a lot of the sets and things.
And you worked on Museum Scream.
Yes, I don't quite remember because I worked on several of those short films at Warner Brothers all at the same time, and they would like went really quickly. And so I don't quite remember what the storyline was on that. But yeah, I worked on that and what's, there was something with Foghorn Leghorn, Cockadoodle Doodle type thing, and a couple of others, I think.
And you worked on The Jungle Book too.
Yes, I don't recall how much work I did on that, but I did storyboard work on Jungle Book too.
You worked on Cockadoodle Doodle.
Cockadoodle Doodle, yeah, that was the Foghorn Leghorn, and that was all at the same time with those several Warner Brothers shorts. And those were fun. I like doing those.
And you got to work on Duck Dodgers in Attack of the Drones.
Right? Yeah, basically the same thing. That was part of those Warner Brothers shorts. Those were produced by Sherry Gunther, who also was a producer on The Simpsons for a while. And she was also the coordinator for the layout department at Disney Features when I was there back on Oliver and Company.
And you got to work on Mulan too.
Mulan 2. Yes, I did storyboard on that. There was a time, I think it was on Quest for Camelot, where I had I think I had done a little bit of storyboarding on different, like small sections of different projects I had worked on previous to that. But on Quest for Camelot, I was able to really do storyboarding, just nothing but storyboarding, and I really liked it. And my career kind of shifted at that point. For a little bit, I kind of went back and forth on projects, doing production design on some project and storyboard on others. And then eventually I just did nothing but storyboarding because I just liked it a lot better.
You've worked on Through the Mobius strip.
Yeah, that was as kind of an art director, and it was to kind of interpret 2D artwork for 3D digital treatment. And so my work kind of focused on how to treat this 2D stylized graphic artwork from a very famous French graphic novelist named Mobius, or Jean Giraud, I think that was his real name, but his pen name was Mobius. And so he conceived of this project as a graphic novel, and then he sold it outright to this Chinese company, and they produced it completely, produced and distributed it themselves. So I don't think the US market ever saw it, but I think it was shown in China. And well, I actually had to go to China for 5 months, so that was a fun project.
And what about the civilization of Maxwell Bright?
That was a live action film. It was the only live action film that I did production design on. And it was because a friend of mine in animation who was a storyboard artist, he got hired to storyboard parts of that film. And he recommended me as an art director. And so I art directed on that film. And it was a very independent, very low budget film. It was done during a writer's strike when there was a lot of talent available. So all the actors worked on that for scale. And it was like 20 well-known character actors that can be seen in that film, even in very small parts. And so Patrick Warburton was the star, and Eric Roberts was his kind of co-star best friend. And so that was kind of a Beauty and the Beast type story with an American man who gets an Asian mail order bride, and he's a horrible person, and he gets a terminal illness, and she kind of prepares him to face his own demons and face his death. So it's kind of a tragic type film.
And you worked on The Ant Bully.
The Ant Bully, that was another film from the company called DNA Animation in Texas. And that was done, which had also done Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. But then that Jimmy Neutron was through Viacom, which was Paramount Nickelodeon. And then The Ant Bully was through Playtone, which is Tom Hanks' company, and Warner Brothers. And so that's what the Ant Bully was. And it was basically a kid who goes out into the yard and kind of abuses the ants until I can't remember what shrinks him down to the size of ants, but he gets shrunk down to the size of ants and has to live in the ant colony. And then he gets this respect for the ants, and he doesn't bully them anymore. That's kind of a that was the premise of that story.
And what about working on Robot Chicken?
Robot Chicken was fun, but it was really hard work because they wanted everything almost overnight, it seemed like. I think I had like 3 days, 2 or 3 days to do every episode. And every episode is just like little bits of all these different ideas that are kind of strung together. It's the whole show is like you're watching animation. You're watching a show on one channel, and then you're just turning to another channel. You're just seeing a gag, and then you're turning to another channel. And you're turning to another channel. So it's kind of like channel surfing, a whole show based on channel surfing, but it was a comedy sketch. It's a sketch comedy show, but it was all done with stop motion. Um, and you just had to just storyboard so fast. And it was fun though, because it was all kind of like a sketch comedy that's based on pop culture ideas and things. So you had to get the shows out fast in order for them to be funny and be relatable to different things that were in the media.
And do you have a favorite episode?
Ah, yeah, but some of the sketches are kind of rude, so I don't want to really describe them. But one was based on Scooby-Doo, but it was like a rude version of Scooby-Doo. And then there was like all kinds of different toys that toy lines where they make fun of them. They made fun of Barbie a lot, and they made fun of GI Joe a lot, and um, they they did like Mary and Joseph in the manger at Christmas time one that was kind of I don't know, sacrilegious, but it was kind of funny too. I don't know.
And what about working on Moral Earl?
Moral Oral, I only worked on one episode of Moral Oral, and it was the director was not pleased with my work for some reason. I think it was the only time in the career when I had an experience like that where it just wasn't what he was expecting, and so I only did that one first episode.
And you worked on Pups of Liberty.
Pumps of Liberty was an all-volunteer project. It was by oh, James James. Oh, can you see the director or producer's name on that? I just can't think of his last name right now. Anyway, so he kind of wait a minute. It was also Bert Klein and Jennifer Klein. Um, I think they were the producers of it, and so it was basically the story of the Boston Tea Party, I think, done with all dogs and cats. I think that was the whole idea for that.
And you worked on Bob the Builder.
Bob the Builder, yeah, I just did some background design. So I basically doing color key paintings for that.
And you worked on Lego Hero Factory Savage Planet.
Yeah, those were kind of fun, but all this the studio wasn't very fun. It was near the beach in Santa Monica, so that was nice. But they had this really big dog, and there was another person at the studio that had a smaller dog, and the dogs were not friendly, but you'd have to go through where the dogs were to get to work. And the artists were in the back, and the front office had a couple of dogs there. So the dogs were kind of scary. One was really huge, and the other was just felt very threatened. So he was one of those ankle biter dogs, and he actually bit my toe once. So that's what I remember about that show. But the storyboarding was fun.
You have worked on Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness.
Yeah, that was I think that was the first TV show that I boarded on. So I learned a lot about storyboarding for television because storyboarding for television is very different than storyboarding for feature film. And there's just a lot of kind of like rules to follow and things for storyboarding for television that um, you don't have to think about if you're doing feature film storyboarding. So that was a real learning experience. And I think I worked on 3 episodes of that show.
And what about Randy Cunningham?
Randy Cunningham, yeah, I worked on the first season of that show, and that was fun because it was like teenagers in high school. He finds this magic book that causes him to become a superhero type ninja character. And so he's like, there's this mythology. It's kind of a Spider-Man type character. It's very funny. Lots of gags that are based on high school humor.
And what about the Box Trolls?
Now that's another film. For some reason, I was working on a film that never got produced up at Leica in Portland, and the film that I worked on was called Ben and Jack and Ben, and it was basically 2 birds that were migrating south for the winter, and they were doing it late because they missed the main night migration. So it was kind of a buddy travel film, like planes, trains, and automobiles. Um, and I worked on that, but Box Trolls was starting up at the same time that we were kind of ending our development of Jack and Ben. And so, for some reason, I think some of the office staff got my name mixed up with the Box Troll people. So my name appears on IMDb with that credit. And I did not work on Box Trolls.
You have worked on the Tom and Jerry show.
Yeah, I think I worked on one or two episodes of the Tom and Jerry show. And that was fun because it was kind of like trying to really feel like the original Tom and Jerry's. Um, um, so that was fun to storyboard. Actually, that might have been the first. I don't know if I did that before or after Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness, but yeah, that was one of the first television storyboarding projects that I had done. But it was fun.
And what about Penguins of Madagascar?
I think that's another one that I didn't work on and I got credit on. And I don't know, it was probably the office staff at the same studio as Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness. Just for some reason, I don't know if this happens to other people. I hope I'm not the only one that it happens to, but for some reason, my name appears on IMDb with that.
What about Harry Huggle-Munster?
Yes, I worked on, I think I just worked on one episode of that, and I can't remember. I think my agent just a lot of times you have fill-in work between big projects, and that was just something where a production needed someone to just work on one show. So that show I just storyboarded one episode.
And you worked on Media Spot Tough Love.
Medea, oh yeah, that was a TV special, I think, or a direct to video. Um, kind of a direct to video feature. I don't know. I don't think it was a long format like a feature length thing, though. I think it was a little shorter than that. Um, but yeah, that was fun. But that was just one of those things where you go in and work on a kind of a shorter term project and then you're done. That was also just storyboarding.
All
That
right.
was actually the story of that Medea Tough Love. It reminded me a lot of the storyline for Bebe's kids. It was kind of like these like bratty kids, and Medea has to take care of them. But it's the Medea character that you are familiar with from Tyler Perry's live action films. But for some reason, they made an animated version of it.
And what about working on Mission Force One?
Mission Force One was just like it was Miles from Tomorrowland, and then one of the later seasons of that show, they instead of him just being with his nuclear family, which is his parents and his sister aboard an aircraft, it was Miles and four of his friends who were a group of five kids, and they were treated like this special group that had missions to accomplish in a spacecraft by themselves. And I think they had some sort of an adult mentor character, and I can't remember who it was. It was one of the later seasons of Miles from Tomorrowland.
You have worked on Norm of the North.
Yeah, that went through I think several early versions. I think I worked on one of the earlier versions, so I think um, I don't know if because of that my name appears on the final credits of the feature film that they eventually created. but I think the feature film that they eventually created, the storyline was kind of, I don't know if it was completely different, but it was significantly different. But I worked on an earlier version with, I don't know if it was a different director. I think it was a different director than the final version.
And
Go ahead.
you worked on Sheriff Kelly's Wild West.
Wild West, yes, that was another Disney Junior show, just like Miles from Tomorrowland, and which are the Puppy Dog Pals. And so Sheriff Kelly's, and I think I only worked on like 3 episodes, I think. Um, but that was kind of something where I was working on like Miles from Tomorrowland, and then when they would have downtime between seasons, they'd roll me onto that Sheriff Callie show, and then back onto Miles from Tomorrowland. So it kind of went back and forth on those two shows. Sorry, my career is not too exciting. I saw you yawning.
Okay, so what about working on Puppy Dog Pals?
Puppy Dog Pals, I worked on that for, was it 3 seasons, 2 seasons? I can't remember, but that was a nice show. It was fun to work on. Two dogs, two pug dogs, and they kind of have these adventures. And can't remember what the name of the actor is who does the main human type character voice, but he's the owner of the two pug dogs. And the pug dogs are just really enthusiastic about pleasing their master. And so when he just makes some sort of offhand comment, they kind of interpret that themselves as to something that he wants, or and so they have these adventures all over the globe looking for this things that their master wants based on just this offhand comment that he makes. So it's kind of a fun show, kind of a very wacky show.
And what about working on Little Ellen?
Little Ellen was Ellen DeGeneres as a little girl. That was the kind of like the idea for the show, based in New Orleans. So that was kind of a fun place to kind of describe an animation. And she has a older kind of a friend named Becky. I don't think that's maybe a cousin, and then a neighborhood friend. I can't remember what his name was. But they have these adventures, and then she has a cat, and then they have these adventures in the neighborhood, and then throughout um, different areas and people that they know in New Orleans, kind of like in the old, what they call it, the old quarter, the French Quarter. And all these television shows that we're talking about, I was storyboard artist. I wasn't production designer on those.
And you got to work on Lego Dreams.
Right, that was the most recent thing that I worked on, and that was the first 2 seasons. Was either the first season or the first 2 seasons? I think it was first 2 seasons. Um, and that was a fun show. It was like a Lego style show where you're drawing the characters with their very Lego kind of bendy limitations. And it was kind of based on, or it seemed to have been based on the live action show called Stranger Things, with these kids in the regular world, and then there's this upside down world that's kind of like this malevolent uh, underground type world where beastie type alien creatures live, and there's those creatures kind of like find a way to go back and forth, and the kids go back and forth. But in um, the series Dreams, the kids are all called dreamers, and they're able to kind of dream the same dream and be in each other's dream, and they have adventures in the dream world, and then they go back to the regular world, which is just like a regular middle school um, existence, well, all the kind of like fun kid stuff that happens in middle school. So that was what that series is about. It's a fun series to kind of check out on Netflix.
So you have worked for Super 78 Studios.
That was a very unusual thing. That was amusement park design. So I worked on amusement park rides like dark ride through and motion control rides that where you're sitting in a seat that's kind of motion controlled and you're having an adventure that's up on the screen. So they're trying to match with the motion of your seat what you're seeing with the action on the screen. And I did that for, I think it was a park in Dubai that they had licensed some DreamWorks properties. So there was one that I did for Kung Fu Panda, one for the feature film called Rio, and one for the feature film How to Train Your Dragon. I think those were the three different ones that I did. There might have been one more.
What about the
But I
Tinkerbell?
just storyboarded the visuals for those rides.
Okay. What about the Tinkerbell movie?
Tinkerbell movie. I served as our art director for, and the first Tinkerbell movie is the one I worked on. They made a lot of them after that, but the first one I worked on, and it was kind of a problem project where there was a few art directors before me and a few art directors after me. So it went through and a lot of different story changes. So the story that I worked on was very different from the final story, and the director was different, and you know, just one of those really problem projects, but I was just one of the art directors in that. I think there was five total art directors through the duration of the different story ideas. I don't know what the story, oh, and that was about the time where John Lasseter kind of came in to Disney, where Pixar and Disney merged, and John Lasseter took over all of the animation. And so when he looked at what was going on with the Tinkerbell project, he just um, thought it could be much better. So um, that's when one of the changes happened. But there was a couple of changes even before that. So that was the ordeal on that project.
And you worked on ZooKazoo.com.
ZooKazoo.com was what do you call those? A virtual world, an internet virtual world. It was kind of like a play area online for kids, and there was a more popular virtual world called Club Penguin. So it was kind of based on the same kind of I think you'd call it a graphics engine or a game engine. So the kind of like the way the game worked was very similar to Club Penguin. But we had all these different environments, places, or rooms, or um, exterior environments where the characters could visit these different places, and uh, you could buy, you could earn points by doing kind of game activities within the virtual world. And then with those points, you could go to like a little virtual gift shop and buy like accessories for your character. So if you had just this plain um, I don't know, like a panda character was your character. You could get a hat, you could get a coat, you could get shoes, you could, you could get, you could get a like a condominium, like a tree house, and then furnish it with all these different items with all the points that you earn doing the games. And then they also, I guess, you could purchase points as well, and that was one of the profit motives or the profit ideas was that kids would be so involved that they'd want to get more than they can just earn in the games, so they'd actually purchase points. And that was like at first I was just like a designer designing like different environments and props and characters and things. And then when something happened with one of the art directors, and so I became an art director. I became the art director for that virtual world.
Alright, you have worked on Ben's Big Adventure.
And so we talked about a little bit about that when we talked about box trolls. So it was just like a planes, trains, and automobiles type story with two birds that were late for their migration. So they were part of a group of many birds, and one was skinny and smart, and the other was kind of silly and overweight. And so they both were trying to do this adventure to get from Canada down to South America or something like that. And so they have all these adventures along the way. So I storyboarded on that. And that was only like a development uh, process because they eventually ended up not making the film. And there was several films like that. Like Betty Boop was a film that I worked on. It was just development, and then there was several projects at Hyperion and Warner Brothers where you're simply developing a project and it never gets made.
You have worked on Naughty or Nice.
Yeah, that was supposed to be a holiday themed film with, I guess Santa has these spy elves that have to it's like there's this mythology of these little toys elf on a shelf that the elves spy on you and report to Santa Claus, so it was all that kind of stuff. It was like mythology of around Christmas and animated with these two elf characters were the main characters.
So, what was it like working on Brain Surge?
Brain Surge was fun and fast. It was like a live action game show on Nickelodeon, I think. Um, or Cartoon Network. I think it was Nickelodeon. Live action game show. And then the questions were asked in the form of animated little sections, and the kids would have to remember what they saw in the animated section. But all those little animated uh, sections that the questions were based on had little gags and things, and they were just lots of fun little sections to work on. I storyboarded on that.
You have worked on The Shadow King.
Shadow King was a Henry Selick stop motion feature idea. It would have been probably one of the more amazing artistic uh, achievements in stop motion if it had gotten made, because the sets, the scale of the sets was like really impressive. And the storyline was, see if I can remember it. There was two kind of kids who two kids who are kind of like orphan type kids, but they have to like work in the home of this old lady who lives in this huge mansion all by herself, and they get into trouble. And the smaller kid has deformed hands, and he can make interesting uh, shadow kind of puppets on the wall, and he's kind of a magical little kid, and those shadow characters can come to life, something like that. But it would have been really imaginative, really fun, and for some reason it was through Pixar, but not directly like in the Pixar studio. And so, but Pixar just couldn't get a handle on the story, or um, figure out like really how they wanted to tell the story and how to end the story and that kind of thing. So they ended up not making that project.
And what about The Governor's Wife?
I just did the title sequence to that. That was one of those like just a live action reality show where you're following this very kind of like well-known ex-governor of Louisiana, and his he was a very old, retired, like 80-year-old man, and he had a very young socialite wife, and there was other kind of weird family members that were like not weird, but they were like very distinct characters. And so it was just a reality show. And so I just storyboarded the title sequence, which was kind of like animated with flat cutout graphic type style.
And you worked on some of the live action commercials.
Just storyboarding. Yeah, storyboarding like live action commercials. They tend to like to really like nail down the images exactly how you're going to end up seeing them in the live action commercials. So they're more illustration style panels. And they were for a company that would take your still drawings and then they would separate out parts and kind of make an animatic by simulating some of the animated some of the motion that you would see in the final live action commercial. I just did regular illustration style um, commercial advertising storyboards for those. I did several. One of them, the most well-known one that got produced was "I Can't Believe It's Not Butter," something like that, or something like one of the products from that company that makes "I Can't Believe It's Not Butter."
And what about Miles from Tomorrowland?
Well, we talked about that a little bit. That was like a kind of like a Lost in Space type show where everything's animated, but it's the family's not lost. They're more on like going on missions like you'd see on Star Trek. So it was kind of a mixture between Star Trek and Lost in Space, but animated.
And you're calling from Glendale, California.
That's where I did live. Right now, I live in Woodlake, which is a little bit north of California, and yeah, I've lived in California most of my career because that's where all the studios are in Burbank, Glendale area. But even though I still had to travel for some, like for that project in China, I had to go there for a couple projects in Dallas. The Jimmy Neutron and the Ant Bully were both in Dallas, and all of the other reindeer. Although I didn't travel, I just worked at home for that. And then I went to Leica for the one Jack and Ben project, and that was up in Portland, Oregon. I think I'm going to have to go now, Cameron. How long do your podcasts usually last?
40 episodes.
But this episode is uh, how long is it supposed to last?
I guess that's it.
Okay, I do have to go. So, is there anything you want to ask me before we leave?
Thanks so much, Fred, for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Have a great day, Cameron.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, it's just that I've had a fun career, and talking with you about it's made me realize like that I worked on a lot of stuff. So I think I've had a pretty good career.
Do you have a storyboards of Robot Chicken?
I don't know if I have. I don't know if I kept any of those. I had to turn them around so quickly. I don't know if I. Um, I'd have to check. I have a basement full of boxes, and so there might be some storyboards in there, and but I don't know.
Alright, stay tuned. There'll be more guests coming up. Until next time, peace.
Thank you, Cameron.